I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Three, 5, 7. Hi there.
Hello.
We are totally professional.
Hi.
I'm not Stu, and I'm here tonight, and I'm running the Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, as I want to do occasionally when Stu gets grumpy and doesn't want to come out of his house. The 10 feet to our studio. So, I'm here tonight, and yes,
Your name's
Tappy.
Kimmy.
My name's Kimmy.
Tappy.
Oh, I'm Jason.
Hey, I'm Mac. Brought to you by Spite and Beer.
Yes. So this is our totally seamless beginning to the show.
It's like Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh,
Remember that movie?
yes.
No.
Yeah. It's totally what it's like.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
Secretly,
totally like
don't
that.
tell anyone that I actually love that movie. Cause
Yes,
I do.
have some. I don't know what's
So-
happening.
We're actually going to cancel the show tonight because Stu couldn't make it, but then we decided to come together as a collective and make it happen.
And fuck around.
And
Yeah.
we did it.
And
Hooray.
we're
Good job,
excited.
everybody.
Yeah,
Good
very
job.
All right,
Yay.
shut it all down. Shut it down. We're done.
Nice work. We did it.
My first and last appearance on the Happy Jack's podcast.
Right. So we do want to welcome Mac. Mac GMs for us. She plays in a bunch of games with us, but this is her first appearance on the actual podcast that
Yeah,
made us
I have finally
famous.
been caught.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. I had to, bribe her with drinks and sexual favors, but it's all fine.
Well,
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
really.
I mean, no, we didn't do that. That would be weird and
bad.
awkward
Yeah.
and hot.
Always awkward the first time.
So on tonight's show, episode, this is season 21, episode 10.
Damn.
Yeah.
Fucking old man. All right. Tonight's episode is sponsored by our good friends at EasyRollerDice.com.
sweet.
So, and their self-standing leather light dice bags, which I'm going to talk more about in just a few minutes. Tonight on the podcast, we are discussing player engagement, how to get it and how to keep it.
With you need a
Engagement.
diamond, like at least 1 carat.
Oh boy. Okay.
Dave from New
Oh,
York.
what? Come on, that was awesome.
Awesome.
Dave in New York sends in a success story, a horror story, and a confession. He's been very busy.
Mm-hmm.
Are they all the same thing or separate things?
I don't know. I guess we're going to find out when we read it.
Dun, dun, dun!
It's a
The
good story.
suspense.
Oh man.
All right, and David, not to be confused with Dave, David from Tampa asks in the forum of a horror story, why so many players play evil PCs?
Mhm.
A Skew Dragon sends us, I never thought this would happen to me story. So, and more.
You never do the first time.
You never do. It's always awkward the first time.
Always awkward.
So if you want to send in a story or a question to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. You can find us on the social medias at happyjacksrpg. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook fan page, a Facebook community. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We also have really active communities on our forum, which is happyjacks.org/forum and happyjacks.org/discord if you want to chat in like real time with people. And if you are listening to the podcast of the show, you can also watch us live at happyjacks.org/live. And if you're watching us live right now, you already know that.
Neat.
Good job.
You worked it out.
But
Good
podcast
for
cool too.
you.
Yes. Easy Roller Dice Company has another really cool Kickstarter happening right now. This time they are launching their large leather light dice bags, and they have some awesome graphics on the front, as well as the ability to hold around 400 dice.
That's many hundreds.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I want to go to there.
Right? I need that so badly. I have so many like different dice bags for different things,
Yep.
and it's like, oh god, the dice I really wanted are in that one.
And
So
then
that,
you-
like all of them.
And then it's nice and heavy and you can weaponize it.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't even
Yeah.
think of that.
Yeah.
A flail style.
Well
yeah.
done. All right. And they look really cool. You can check it out by going to easyrollerdice.com/bag. And you'd think before now someone would have created something really amazing. Dice bags, but they really aren't that many great bags on the market right now. So Easy Roller Dice is, doing their campaign to change all that. So breaking out of the mold, again, that's easyrollerdice.com/bag. not /douchebag/bag. That's
that's a
We are
completely
the
different
douchebag is us.
Kickstarter.
yeah, we are the douchebags.
As is
They have the
Sack.
bag.
Yeah.
But if you would like to donate to the Happy Jacks douchebag Kickstarter, you can just send all your money to me.
Bobcat in the chat room totally took your idea. He's like a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes.
Well done. Well
I
done.
love you, Bobcat.
Bobcat.
Love you. Yes.
That's really
Starting out real strong here.
Right? I feel
Like
feel
I'm
it.
not even being like I'm not even making fun of it. Like we really are.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
Now
better
it's jinxed.
person for having heard that. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, nothing could go wrong. Now.
Mac's just like, oh god, what have I
I
done?
made a huge mistake. Okay, let's see. There's this drinking horn because we just pour
Yeah.
the beer
Yes.
together.
Do that.
It's all right. It's not like you're gonna roll worse than a 3.
Shut up. I hate you so much.
Okay.
Oh man. So
Is there a story there you should tell us?
Yeah.
I just roll like shit in one of our games. It's amazing. It's,
Yeah,
like,
it's-
seriously a superpower how badly I roll in that
Yeah,
game.
PBTA game. She rolled 2 dice. Got a 1 and a 2.
Every
and I was
time.
like, "Hey, re-roll it. You'll probably do better than a 3." Got
Snake eyes.
got a 2.
Ah, yes.
And that's happened like 4 times.
Yeah.
Every
There
time.
there's a great PTBA game where you get experience every time you fail.
Yeah, a lot of them do that.
And so
Almost all of them. Yeah.
that's like
It is,
Yeah.
except when you
It's
really
the
want it, like cool.
It's the participation trophy.
yeah, it really is.
well, it makes
You
you get better
tried.
so that you
Yeah.
But you only get better if you roll well.
No, you
Yeah.
only get better if you suck at
Well,
rolling.
It's
Right, no, but if you have amazing powers because you keep leveling up, but you keep rolling like shit, it doesn't matter.
you still can't use this awesome shit that you bought.
Exactly.
Oh man, but it's hilarious.
It is.
and
It
that's
makes
almost
for-
worth it.
It makes for a very entertaining
Oh man,
television.
some of
Twitch.
my favorite characters I had very early on were just the worst, and just were intentionally sucked at it.
Right.
Oh, there's Mutant Chronicles game. I forget what the character's name is now, but he was like a drug addict, and I intentionally took major minuses to all of my skills.
Yeah.
I keep trying to fail at magic in Interpol X, and I can't. I have a -1 to roll it, and I'm a wizard. That's it.
I love taking major flaws, but I also love playing horrible characters, which we'll get into
too.
hopefully
Oh.
later.
Yeah, soon.
Because that's part of the
Part
topic.
of the topic.
I
It's
love
just
why I
love
feel
playing
like
horrible
speaker.
characters.
Mac
too.
desperately trying to steer us back on course. Well done, Mac. Thank you. So yes,
She just wants to go home eventually.
Oh man, I
No,
miss.
there's just not enough liquor in this, blah, 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 blah,
Well-
vicinity, and so I have to go raid it in the house.
In,
Yes.
in the other room, I think there's more booze.
well, we have the whole shelf up there.
Oh yeah, we're good. Yeah, woo! High five.
Forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed the 2.5-hour episodes, so
yeah.
this is gonna be a callback to that.
That is our goal.
Doesn't have to be.
Jason's like, I have a brand new puppy at home that I
so
want to go play
tired.
with.
I want to go home and play with your puppy too,
Yeah.
and then it'll be my puppy.
Wait,
No.
is that a euphemism?
Nope, I have
No,
a new
it's
puppy.
like a legit
No.
puppy.
And I haven't slept much in 2 weeks, so
So I should take care of the puppy for a while so you can sleep.
no.
And you
Yes.
get derailed once again.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so tonight's topic, the main topic. So we usually pick like one thing that we talk about for a while, and then we'll do emails, and we don't really stay on topic. We're not good at staying on topic, but that's okay.
Really?
Which is why there's like sheets of homework here,
Yes.
but we might as well just like pour the beer on them.
Well, we
No.
just read them.
Yeah.
I
Only
did the
one
we?
homework.
person did the homework.
Yeah,
Well, if
yeah.
you want to eat that. I mean, fiber. So anyway, tonight's topic is player engagement: how to get it and how to keep it.
Fear.
Get it,
Fear,
get it.
yes. So, sometimes when you're playing a game, player interest wanes. Sometimes it was never there. Like, sometimes when you start a game, especially as a GM, you're like, oh, they have no fucking interest in this. Like, how can you get your players more engaged in the game, regardless of whether they thought they'd be into it and weren't, or they just didn't buy into your concept to start? Should you try it? Does it matter? What do you guys think?
Kill them.
I have very strong feelings about this, but I
Okay.
want to let other people talk before I do.
I think that those are two very different
Because-
situations. If you had player interest and it wanes, that's different than when you start a campaign and it falls flat immediately and you're like, oh, they really aren't interested in this setting at all.
Right.
I think those are two very separate problems, personally.
It's hard. I mean, honestly, with my GMA experience, this is going to sound kind of weird, and I don't know how much I've talked about it. Literally all of my GMing experience has been for live audiences. I have never run a game at home.
Yeah.
So mine have always been steered with the idea of entertainment in mind. So I always have players that are very engaged. My problem is when they become less interested in the story that is presented and really start just going off the rails and trying to keep it more on track. And I don't know if it's so much an engagement thing or if it's just the fact that all players are garbage.
Right.
But making it really personal to them usually helps. And also sometimes if they really start going off the rails, I love to be like, all right, you can do that, but let me tell you how this is going to work.
Yeah. I actually had an interesting experience with this as a player whose interest is starting to wane. People are going to be mad at me for saying this. But in Mode of Sin.
What? Stop talking.
I know. Okay, like, I was playing Adrian. Like, I'd played Adrian for 3 years in a row. Like, I've been playing her for a long time. As the prince, like, there's a lot of unfun stuff with playing a PC who's also the prince. Like, there's a lot of...
Like what?
Well,
being awesome?
Well, no, being awesome. And being,
Telling people what to do? You love that.
I do love that. It's like my favorite thing. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe that was too close to me in real life. Like I was having to
No,
manage
you
people.
should have just told more people to do more things.
Oh, okay. Well, see, you tell Stork what to do. And
It doesn't happen.
but I think, I mean,
Wait, are we talking about real life or are we talking about the game?
Yes.
Stork is playing
I love Stork so much.
an extended version of himself in that game. In many
No.
ways. Okay.
Yeah.
But
and you're not?
no, I was. I think that's
Yeah,
right.
I mean, most of us do to some extent. You know.
Yeah, great way to get to know people is to roleplay with them.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
Right, and
That's
I
why
think
first date should be roleplaying.
Okay.
Yeah.
not totally
my.
against it. But I think like playing that campaign for so long and actually like it is hard to balance that. Yes, as a prince when you're playing vampire, you should have ultimate power, but as somebody's friend, you don't want to like take away their playing agency and be like, you have to do this or I'm going to kill you. Like you want to, there's a balance there of having the power but also like collaborative storytelling. And it gets tiring after a while a little bit. So I was actually I was sad when she died, but I was also like a little glad that she died.
I feel a little better now, though, because my character was part of the reason that your character died, because she just didn't help you at all.
That's okay.
She went in for eating other vampires instead.
She did. Diablerie,
And
saving
was
the
kind
prince. You hated her anyway.
Also another fucking Albert type
Right.
of character, too, so you're like, God damn it, now
I
there's
know.
two of them.
There's two of these gangrels. God damn it. Hurting gangrels.
They need to be
God damn it.
herded. Yeah.
But I think that...
Oh man, there needs to be like a herding gangrels like meme or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the things that's really sparked up engagement, either as the GM or some games that I've been part of, are when the characters all had some kind of tie-in right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I've come to despise as a DM is everyone makes their characters at home, comes to the first session.
Yeah.
It says who their character is and how they're an awesome loner wolf and at what point all of their family was killed off. and then here you go, deal with my character.
I
right?
have no family.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything I do is awesome and I don't need any of you losers.
Right.
But systems like a lot of the PBTA games and other games where you have like background questions tied in as part of character creation is like, how do you know these other characters? Not
Right.
do you know them, right? Like you don't have to like each other, but having a little bit of a tie-in of like, oh yeah, somebody was the prosecuting attorney when your mom went to prison, and like like that kind of background stuff is interesting,
Right.
and it tends to engage you in these little story hooks that are now a part of the story, and it matters to you personally, not this like, well, I'm the son of the baker, and I'm going to take up arms and defend my town. Like, okay.
You get that sort of thing also in like L5R really hard
Yeah.
because you have the clans and then you have the families. So if you're the same family, you definitely know each other.
Oh, that's
If you're
cool.
the same clan, you might know each other, but you're going to work together probably and
Yeah.
probably like at least attempt to get along.
Yeah.
And so it can
Attempt.
right. So it can establish those connections.
And you can do that even outside of those systems, because a
Yeah.
lot of the games that I've run, like Phoenix Dawn Command and Werewolf the Wild West, like they don't really have that baked into character creation, but I usually ask players separately and say, hey, I need you to give me some background about your character and, you know, dig in. And I usually come with like, here's the set of questions that I need to know. And then that way it also gives me stuff in my arsenal later that I can dig up if it seems like, hey, this player needs a little more love and attention. Here's something I can pull up. Like, usually something really traumatic because I'm a horrible person.
Sure. No, that's the best thing.
Oh yeah, I love responding with fuckery and something's traumatic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, when I'm running D&D or Mage or Shadowrun or something now, I have a whole bunch of like background questions that people can pick and say, okay, you and blank did such and such together.
Yeah.
And like just little things like that you can take to any game. It's not system specific because it doesn't depend on any particular rule mattering or whatever. It's just a thing to engage you in who your character really is and what
and
do
the
they
other
want.
people at the table
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
I think when you did our off-camera Eberron game, like our first game gaming together before we did anything with Happy Jacks together, you brought I think they were the Star Wars PBTA questions. And like it's super easy to just pull those from a PBTA book and get those connections because I think that helps people get started and they have that, or their characters at least have that emotional tie to each other that keeps them more invested in the story long term. If everybody's just out to get the loots and, you know, gold and stuff like that, you're going to have trouble. And they're
Race, chug, chug.
Sorry. I should have muted that.
It's waterproof. It's very specifically waterproof.
That
the new
was
table.
speed attention to foam.
Yes.
I just edited so many versions of that were not okay to say out loud.
They probably would have been okay.
Yeah.
But-
I want to hear them.
Turns out I do have no gag reflex.
Yeah.
I'm
We
interested.
always. Yeah.
Is there a newsletter?
That was a line in Tappy's old show. He used to shout that out to a whole crowd of people. It was pretty amazing. And it turns out, after 10 years of saying it, it's actually true. But,
Oh, boy.
yeah, amazing. But I think that's, you know, a great way to keep them interested from the start. I think, you know, talking to your players ahead of time and making sure they're interested in the concept you've come up with.
Yes.
I think that's huge because I've heard, and we've heard a bunch of stories where people are coming to the table, they're expecting one thing and they get something completely different. So try and communicate with them ahead of time because that would suck if you're sitting down for, oh, you know, you're going to play D&D and then suddenly like the DM's like, oh, we're playing D&D, but it's Eberron and it's like a totally different
That's
flavor.
a really different, like if you're going to sit down and run, you know, Mage or Shadowrun for people, that's great, but tell them like, okay, we're going to run Shadowrun at this really low level power level, you know, very low build points, and we're going to be coming up from the streets, and we're going to have like knives and zip guns to get started.
Nice.
And like, and everyone can go, not sure that's my thing. I want a bazooka.
Right.
You know, like, oh, okay, well, let's adjust this so everyone can have fun.
Bazooka, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, set
So-
expectations with that, and there's a lot of genres within everything.
Absolutely. Tappy, you had something?
Well, for me, like engagement, like just kind of talking about what engagement is, and that is like the players giving back, right? That's energy, like giving back, or time, or whatever. It's not like some woo bullshit, but like they want to do more. They're giving you more about their characters. They're pushing the plot or pushing their characters' angles, and how you do that. And I may have talked about this on the show before, but it's really relevant, so I'm going to do it again.
Do it.
Is there are these positive psychologists that are hired by video game companies to study this exact thing. Because getting engaged in a video game is how you make millions upon millions of dollars. And so there's one in particular that I really like. Her name is Jane McGonigal.
Of course you like the professor named McGonagall. Come on.
She's also an education, what do you call it? Like, helps people set up education
Yeah,
programs.
I mean,
and stuff.
she's feckin' brilliant.
Yeah.
And so she has this kind of map of engagement or concept of engagement that she calls the 4 pillars of engagement. She has like a bunch of TED Talks on this stuff like this, and people should look it up.
I have
It's great.
totally gone
you know
to
this one?
staff development and watched this lady.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is super important. This
I
is
know.
really, really, really good.
Yes.
So the 4 pillars of engagement are the feeling of being good at something, useful work to do, the feeling of being a part of something bigger, and hanging out with people you like.
Yes.
If you get those 4 things to your player group, they will 100% just like be in with you. So what do these things mean in the concept of RPGs? Like the feeling of being good at something, that's giving them things that they can actually, like tasks or challenges that they can actually get over and use the skills that their players are good at, right? Kind of like the personalize the story to the character, bring unique things about their character to the forefront. Like the things about their character that's good that they want to move forward, they make sure they get to do that, and then they can feel good about, you know, that their character's good at things. We talked about this way back with D&D, like what is an effective character? Well, effective is moving the story along, but also like getting that feeling of success.
Right.
Then useful work to do. The things they do need to actually have impact on the game. If they're just on the rails and they're going through a dungeon and, you know, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're just going through it, and eventually they'll get to the end of this dungeon and get the thing. But then they move on to the next one, and it doesn't matter that they did the dungeon, just the loot they had. And then they go to on the next one, just collecting loot. That isn't very engaging. That isn't interesting. When it feels like the things you're doing has real effect upon the game or real effect for your character story, then people want to move forward. They want to, oh yeah, and then I can do this, and then I can do this.
One caveat I'll add to that, though, is like I've played in one where it was basically a dungeon crawl, and we were doing all this stuff, but it was almost like our dungeon crawl was the background, and at the forefront, in the middle of every combat, whatever, it was the fucking drama between our characters.
But see,
and that was fun. It was so like the purpose of the dungeon crawl was moot, basically, but we had that drive to engage in that way because we had this.
And that also is part of that hanging out with people you like. Because the interpersonal drama you're doing is also like you and your friends hanging out and doing wacky shit together while you're doing this dungeon crawl. So having a group where everybody likes each other is really, really fucking important.
Yes.
And if people don't know each other, maybe try and like meet at a bar or something, or do whatever in order to have that group mesh. Like
I think tying back to what Jason was saying about having that group character creation, like that's a great thing. Like get some beers, get a pizza or whatever you know you want, and do that character creation together because it's a great bonding experience for the people too.
I mean, to me, the greatest sin committed by RPG groups is making characters separately.
Yeah.
That's I mean that's just I've seen it crash and burn so many times, and making characters together almost never crash and burn. Like it's almost always worked. At least been successful for them.
And being conscious if you add people later down the road about the engagement. I joined a D&D bi-weekly group for a while, and the players have been playing together for so long already and had so much character background and story that when we got there, it was mostly just hack and slash stuff. It wasn't actually any of what we were expecting it to be. And again, it goes back to expectations. And we came in and everybody else already kind of knew what was going on, but there wasn't a lot of work done to integrate us into that world. So we finally backed out, which is another thing that I think is worth bringing up is sometimes a player just isn't going to be engaged, and giving them an easy out is a better thing. Some people, like, you can try and work with them, but if it's going to be forced or they're going to be unhappy or it's a lot, like, also give them the option, like, hey, you know, I'm not sure if you're having a good time. Do you want an out?
Yeah.
And don't make it a big thing if it's not their thing.
Well, and also in that example, you have a lot of, like, what feels like useful work. Like hack and slash doesn't feel like useful work.
And it
to you.
wasn't. And we kept
and
getting
so you're
TPKs.
Like, I am.
Just
It's like,
what is
whoa,
happening?
Totally not engaged. Totally not engaged. TPK, do not have the feeling of being good at something.
Right.
You're not hanging out with people you like.
Yeah.
So of course you're like, this is not my thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's definitely more than just this formula, but like looking at it through this lens, I can absolutely see why you guys are like, it's been swell, but swelling's gone down.
Well, and it's such a big thing to the point where when I got a chance to talk to Keith Baker about Phoenix Dawn Command, because I was running that game for a while, part of that game was born out of issues from D&D campaigns where they felt like the characters didn't matter or they died, it was just irrelevant. And that game is built to be important big character moments. That's why you can only level up by dying, is because it has to be meaningful.
Yeah. Right. And that's the last one, the feeling of being a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
Right? That's huge. You have to be integrated into this world and being a part of it. and definitely that makes people just like, yes, I died, awesome,
Yeah.
Yeah.
cool.
That was great because it was a game where I intentionally had to find ways to get the players to die, but I had to do it so they died about an equal number of times relevant to each other, and it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
So kind of like Paranoia.
Yeah, that's a really fun challenge. Paranoia is a lot of fun.
I haven't played Paranoia in 20 years.
The system isn't good, but the story
It's an old
is.
one, yeah.
It's a fun. Yeah. Anyway.
I think tying back to what Mac was saying a second ago about giving them an out, I think like you can give them an out like to leave, but I think it's also an option to give them an out for their character because it kind of reminded me of like the story I was telling at the beginning. Like Adrian died, my character died. Spoilers if you haven't watched that. But that was a long time ago, so too bad. But it coming back as a totally new character really kind of revitalized my interest in that game, and I got to see it through a different lens and react and act with all the characters in different ways. So if someone like has just been playing a character too long, or they made a character that just doesn't really, mesh well, and they're just not having fun with it, give them the option. Like talk to them, and be like, hey, does this character need to go away? Like they could die or go away in another way,
or change and like I was playing in a D&D campaign, and I was playing an elf, and I really wanted to play a shifter character. I felt really bad that I hadn't rolled one up, and he's like, well, let's find a way in the story to basically have it be that she swaps over to this. So my character actually had an arc that eventually ended her up. So she wasn't technically that, but had the mechanics of it so that I could play what I actually wanted to play. And it worked out really well, and it was a really great story arc.
Right. I had the same thing in my Apocalypse World game where one of my players, she really wanted to like be a magic user, but in Apocalypse World there isn't really something like that. So she was playing a savvy head and was having fun, but really, really wanted to make a magic user. And so her character got annihilated at one point and then came back as some weird hologram ghost magic thing that could then use magic.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And was attached to a hologram projector that one of the other characters had.
That's
That's right.
I think that's important. Like in addition to like the pillars, which I totally love. That
It's super good.
But folks,
it's so good.
if you haven't seen Jane McGonigal's TED Talks,
Yeah.
go look
They're
her up.
fucking dope.
But I think you also need like variety. You need that change because anybody's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
get bored. Even if you've got those 4 pillars, like the same thing all the time, or being the same character for too long with no change, with no arc, is gonna get people disinterested. So like have the pillars, but also like have a story that involves like their character changing in some way.
Yeah, characters should be 3-dimensional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you play for 3 years, which is a very long time to play, you
With
should.
Stork.
Yeah,
Stork is great.
Love Stork.
I have to add too. The first time I had a DM offer for me, like at one point I had made a character, and I was kind of having fun with it. But I was like, man, I really wish I'd made a wizard. We don't have a wizard. It was my first time playing D&D, and I was like, I just picked up because it was D&D 3.5, and I picked up something and I was playing it, and it was kind of fun. I was like, but man, so finally I read like the rest of the player's hand, and I was like, oh man, this wizard stuff sounds cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I think I want to like retire this character or something. And this is the first time I had a DM go like, do you want to kill him off?
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like some drama.
Yeah.
Like, let's do that.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was a much more interesting story to me. And suddenly, and those last couple sessions, knowing that was the arc of the character, but no one else at the table knew.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to have this sacrifice moment. I was like, I was so excited to go through that. And it was...
Well, and then you get to like hear about your character from like another person's perspective. Like it's so fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of that is like a really great way to kind of keep players engaged, or if you're seeing them kind of their engagement dwindling, like things you can do to kind of revamp it.
Mm-hmm. Like buy alcohol.
Or alcohol. Yeah. That's kind of our
Just get them liquored up and say, keep rolling dice, bitch.
Yeah. Do it.
Oh man, when can I play in one of your games?
Sooner than you may think.
You should check out Razor Ridge, actually, if you haven't followed it. It's a really
No,
good...
I totally have followed
messaged-
it. It's a Happy Jacks game online.
Well,
I've absolutely.
Monster Heart's coming up. I told you about that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
for
I
that.
don't think we've officially announced. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say
I am.
anything. about
I am
that
so
yet.
in for that. I am
Who
so
do I
in
have
for
to
that.
murder to
Did
get
I
into that
message you
game?
back about that?
I will do
You
both.
said that
You have to
might
be a
not
public
be
educator.
able to do it.
No, I totally into that.
Especially now that Max says she's going to call you her bitch.
I call everyone my bitch to be fair. So
No.
All right.
What are you talking about?
What?
yeah,
Alright.
but that is happening, and it's going to be good time.
awesome.
And I already have some thoughts about the time frame setting we're going to be in.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
exciting.
it's not. I mean, we've mentioned it a couple times. We haven't done artwork or official announcement yet, but it's going to be taking the place of Interpol X on Mondays. So
Yep.
very exciting.
I'm super stoked. I've
Monday,
only
every
played.
other Monday.
I haven't gotten to
Mondays.
run yet. So
Well, it's gonna be awesome.
yeah, it's yes.
Yeah, it turns out.
Yes,
It
have
turns
some.
out I can't afford traveling, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna be here on
So Monster Hearts.
some
it
Monster
is.
Hearts.
All right.
Hey, before we jump in, can I
yeah.
dibs the second email because I was here for the original conversation?
Sure. Yes, I will.
If that's all right with everybody.
I will make a notation.
Okay, thank
Jason
you.
on the second email.
Dibs.
Wait, aren't you gonna do that one anyway? Because I have the first
Well, I don't know
one.
if Kimmy was going to
Well,
read
you
the
can't.
Well,
first
she
one or
already
not.
did.
No, that's not.
You
Well,
already
no.
did- you
Next
did
we
the
do
email.
block C.
Oh my god.
Just
There's
leave
a-
something for me.
Let me do the hosting, Taffy. Let me do the hosting. All right. So next part, we talk about games people played this week. So who's played games or run games this week?
Can't think of
Ready
it.
to go. That's you, Mike.
Dumbass. We played Tales from the Noob.
It was Loopy.
It
Yes,
was?
with Cave.
I thought you said Tales from the Noob.
Tales from the Noob, where everybody is dumb and has never played a role
I
playing
mean,
game
our
before.
characters are like 14, so they are. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a literal noob.
Yeah, I'm having a really fun time with that game, although I'm having, I don't want to spoil anything, I'm having a little trouble with my footing in that, just because I was out for the first session because I put it in my calendar wrong, and
Oh, no.
it was like, hey, you guys ready for tonight? And I'm like, I'm in Florida right now. No. So I came up with the reason why my character was out, and that's kind of affected everything, but everything's been right into it, and it's just, I don't know. She's an interesting character. She's sort of in my wheelhouse, but also not. I don't know. But she has a pet rat, so it's fun.
Yeah.
That's often how I make a character. Is like, what have I not done before?
Yeah.
I want to do the thing I haven't tried before. Or I sit at the table and I'm like, oh, what is everyone else doing? I'm going to do something different than that.
Yeah.
That's the other way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, she's a little bit mopey teenager, which I've done before, but she's got sort of a different edge to her, which I'm really looking forward to exploring more. But right now we're too busy fighting maybe robots, aliens underneath the crust Earth people. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Nice.
God damn it, Dave.
That's gonna be great.
Damn it. I got to sub in on Kurt's Hollowed Plains Vampire the Dark Ages game, which was super fun. I got to play a Nosferatu at so it was very fun.
Did
I
you
just want to
live?
say, subbing in means a totally different thing in my head.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's not what I did.
Just
more-
so long
that's more
as you didn't
subbing
have
under,
a list.
isn't it?
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Just so long as you didn't have a list.
I didn't, but I was playing Scully's like great human grandmother. So like,
Were you wearing a wedding dress?
I was not. Although I might have been. I don't think I specified what I was wearing. But I was super like this, and I talked like this, and all the whole time it was like the most obnoxious thing. It was amazing, and I somehow managed like when like the 3-hour window to like get the prince to like owe me a favor. And because I had information they needed, because Kurt was like, because I was basically playing an NPC who's like a real person for one day. So he's like, here's the information your character knows. And I'm like, I will be queen of everything in 3 hours. Vampire with no like game I have to worry about next time. I will own it all.
Still a Ventru.
It was.
Although I love doing crossover characters or having integrations with like
Yeah.
some of the other realms of Happy Jacks.
Oh, yeah.
Which apparently Razor Ridge is becoming like the home
It's
for.
losing, yeah. There's so much crossover now with like all the games and like it's very fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of fanfic happening.
I also play
Wait,
in
what?
Tales from
Yeah.
the Loop,
Don't ask.
which we're having. I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Why?
My character is sort of like just what's on the tin, like which is such an interesting
love Crash.
experience for me. Of like he just like heart on his sleeve, just is exactly what he seems to be.
Triangles.
Yeah, and it's so fun doing like just playing a character like that. But I also had a lot of fun on Saturday doing this Masks one shot.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I mean Masks is so much fun anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But we had our new player in Jay Holtham.
He's awesome.
And he did really well. But the whole group was just like such a hoot. I'd never gotten to play with Kurt Hanna before.
Yeah.
is fun.
So that was wild, and just the the game was so goofy and weird. And honestly, it took, like, I had kind of an idea of what I was going to do, and then it just went buck wild, and I was like, guess I'm just going to roll with this.
As PBTA does. You're like, all right, I guess this is the story now.
This is
what's happening.
This is my life now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
It's fine.
just...
Everything's fine.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
I know. It's awesome.
And then, also having players like Nick and Adam who are, just yes-anding the shit out of that. It's
so fun.
It's just... I mean, I will play Masks at the drop of a hat. I think it's the perfect one-shot. I was actually tweeting about this week. It's super easy to pick up. It's got story hooks right in the build. Like, it's just great. And it makes a decent campaign, too. But, it's so much fun.
Super fun system.
Yeah.
I have learned that I don't like to run superhero games, but I love playing superhero games.
Yeah. It's super fun.
Oh, don't tell the others, but I think Crash is my favorite from Tales from the Loop.
No, that's so sweet of you to say. Thank you.
It's a secret for you and everyone else on the internet.
Remember, guys, it's our secret. Wink.
Yeah.
Don't
The
tell
wink was for
anybody.
you listening to the podcast at home.
Yes. And we played 10 Candles on Saturday.
Yes.
Oh, how'd that go?
It was super fun.
It was
Yeah.
it was definitely interesting. It was way shorter than I expected it to be once it got going, but we were
That was
also
also
rolling
our choices.
horribly.
Yeah.
Well, we were also rolling really bad. Although, man, Kimmy, you and I are almost always antagonistic towards each other.
We are.
Like every game that we've played.
Yeah.
Because, let's see, because we played another fantasy game and you were really happy and my character was like, oh my god, please leave me alone. But I don't think we've ever played characters that actually get along, which is funny because we get along really well in real
I
life.
know, it's so funny. I think part of that is like what I was saying a minute ago about me being like, oh, what are they doing? I'm going to do something different.
Yeah,
Oh, you're gonna be happy? I'm the
gonna
most
be
morose
angry.
person
Yeah.
ever.
But here's the thing about playing with trust is, like, I would never RP an antagonistic relationship with somebody I didn't know very well.
Right.
See, I would,
didn't
but
trust.
I
Oh, no,
don't
no, I
care.
totally have.
Right.
Like, in our 4th edition game with
every
Claire.
day of your life.
So antagonistic
But
all the time.
But you knew her, and you
I
did that
did
on
know her.
purpose.
I did, 'cause I knew it would fluster her,
That
and it
is
was
not-
hilarious.
That is not what Jason's saying.
Yeah.
Jason's like, I don't want to antagonize people I don't know. You saying, I know Claire and I want to make her angry is the opposite of what he's saying. Opposite thing, Dappy.
But 10 Candles ended up being like a really fun game that's weirdly crazy collaborative, where it's less of a GM and more of just somebody kind of moderating what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just kind of play. You don't really have to have a lot to go off of to play it.
Yeah.
It feels almost like reading it. It feels almost like more of a party game
It
for
does.
people who are good at
totally
improv
is.
Yeah.
than a role-playing game that we would expect a role-playing game to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then that whole loop with the beginning of it,
What if you had to take a shot every single time a candle went out?
then we would have been dead in real life too, and not just in the game.
Yeah.
Everybody takes a shot, or the last person standing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I think that was one of the things too. Like, I want to play again because I feel like we got the vibe of it later in the game because I think we were sitting down expecting more of like a role-playing game experience, and it did end up being more of a party game. It was still super fun, but we were thinking super strategically. Like, there's certain mechanics in the game where it's
right.
like,
Yeah.
where it's like you get to burn things and you get like extra things, and we were like, oh, we're gonna save them for the end, and then at the end you're like, oh, I can't really use these at this point. So that's one of the reasons the game went so fast, because these saves you're supposed to be able to use, we couldn't use at that point because we'd like waited too long.
Right.
I was looking for
'Cause we're
excuses
gamers.
to use mine though.
Yeah.
See, I was actually actively looking, but I wasn't finding a good spot because I was looking for it, but because it was so collaborative,
Yeah.
it is a game that actually does encourage you to kind of be like, I'm gonna fuck off and do this thing over here, but I didn't want to do that, even though I'm like, I really want to burn cards because fire's awesome. But yeah, it was something I'd probably do a little bit differently next time, but for the first time around, it was really fascinating. And it's so open world that, you know, we went from a movie theater to finding a military base to going to the Las Vegas Strip to finding a convoy to another military base.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But knowing your character's going to die at the end anyway removes all real stakes from it. You can kind of just fucking be whatever you want.
Kind of.
At least I felt that way. Like, I was like, no, I wasn't stressed about like winning, quote unquote, or fighting the bad guys. It was like, well, if my character dies, that's the point of this game. Let's just make it cool.
Yeah. I think there's that anticipation of like, when was it going to happen? It's like when you watch a horror. I suck at watching horror films. I hate them.
Oh, I detest horror films.
Yeah, I'm so bad at that. I'm the one to be like yelling, no, don't walk in there. You're stupid. You deserve to die for walking in there. Like, I get so angry. I yell. It's not pretty. And I feel like I had that same kind of like nervous tension with this game where like I knew what was going to happen. It was super predictable what was going to happen, but I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen, so I was very stressed out the whole time.
That's
in a fun
so
way.
Funny, because I was so not stressed.
But
But
you love horror movies.
I'm a big horror fan,
Yeah.
and I'm like, let it begin.
Yeah.
Can I be the killer? I want to be the monster, please.
Yeah, and me, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to yell until she makes the right decision and doesn't end up dying in the end. And that never really actually works with movies because they're already finished. Yeah. Anyway, shocking that I know that. All right. Excellent.
The more you know about horror movies.
The more you know. Okay.
G.I. Joe.
Also a horror movie. Did you see that?
You mean horrible?
Horror. Yeah.
No, it was a horror movie. That's the kind of thing that gives me nightmares.
Oh, yeah.
So bad.
The fact that gets greenlit.
Yeah.
They give
All right.
them money.
First email. Ready? Go, Tappy.
Okay.
Go
Right? The
Tappy.
success
Go
story, horror
Tappy.
story.
All right. A success story, a horror story, and a confession from Dave from New York. Because we do not do enough silly voices
Anymore.
anymore.
There's something that we used
Hello,
to do.
Jackers. I'm writing in with a GM success. Und. Wait, it's not German. Horror story / confession. All right, I'll start with the success, in which I lay claim to victoriously letting a group together and running a D&D 5e campaign up to 8th level.
Okay, that by itself is deserving of.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, well done.
At which time, they emerged happy from many dungeons and slew an adult black dragon in its lair, after much preparation and the destruction of its supporting evil cult. I was inspired to DM my first time by ttrpg, and I got 6 players to get together once or twice a month, or for about 2.5 years.
You're a fucking hero.
Yeah. I feel like my ability to multitask, engage lots of people's desires, and was honed already by teaching. And
Yes.
I was used to being the one doing a lot of the talking / directing the action.
What do you think? Do you think that's true, Jason?
Yes, and are you regretting your choice yet?
Oh yeah, totally am. It was great fun.
You have permission to walk it back.
Why?
If you
No,
want to,
I am committed.
that's your cross to
Jason,
bear.
that's Jason saying your Scottish accent is terrible and it's hurting my
yeah.
I
ears.
didn't say that.
Of course it's terrible.
As-
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, accents should be.
Oh wait, I'm not supposed to swear anymore, am I?
You can?
Oh, okay.
Is that
good.
a thing?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Why? Really? Fuck.
I love that.
I've been told I swear too much.
There's a difference between like
And then I showed up.
not
so,
having other words and then yeah. That's fine.
Okay, sorry.
I love that Tappy's been the clean one this
Right?
is the one episode ever.
All right,
Remember
now
this
that's fucking
episode.
ending.
Done now.
Yeah, fuck you, you fucking fuck.
He's gonna start sprinkling
All
that
right,
into the email.
it was fucking great fun, and one of my fucking players, who was full of artistic creativity, got so into it that they had taken over the campaign, and so I could start a Coriolis game, motherfucker, Coriolis campaign or Coriolis game, from the same publisher and similar system to Tales from the Loop, yay insert, and Mutant Year Zero, which is also going great at this time. With the D&D campaign in my friend's hands, I rolled up a bard to join the party and sing songs of their greatness.
Say Bard again. Say it again.
Say it without laughing.
Yeah.
Stop laughing. Stop
What?
laughing.
Greatness?
No Bard.
Bard. I rolled up a bard to join the party
Oh boy.
and sing songs of their greatness. And from there comes the horror story. Have a drink.
Oh God, we just started the horse day. It's like literally not even
Oh
here
man, I need another beer.
yet. Do a thing.
All right.
All right.
I spent 2.5 years as a god, an experience which is not translating well to the player side of the game. I didn't care about the death of minions or even bosses. There was always another cult member ready to step up and take their place, or a monster to be summoned or hacked together Frankenstein style.
Frankenstein?
When I started to be the target of 86 breath weapons, however, I held on a little too closely to my precious character and tried to rules lawyer my way out of as much damage as possible.
So I do want to say, like, if you have a thing that lets you avoid some damage, you should use the thing.
Yeah,
right?
Right,
Like,
I feel like
use
there's
it.
probably some more information coming there.
maybe.
When I have hammed it up, picking out songs to play on my iPod for each of my spells, speaking in a funny voice, and
What
trying
would that
to
be like?
use as much. Oh man, you haven't even heard my funny voices. This is middle of the road.
Oh God.
Where's the kaboom?
Can we recast Monster Hearts?
Don't worry, I won't be Scottish.
It'd be so much worse.
Be Irish instead.
Oh no, it's so much worse than that. They have funny voice and trying to use as much as possible of the environment to earn D&D's inspiration mechanic. I got too obviously and vocally disappointed when the GM wasn't forthcoming with it. I confess I have been spotlight hogging. I think this is an after effect of anxiously over talking to fill up empty space as a GM. In our last session, I got petrified after failing a con save in the first 5 minutes of the game, and spent the next 2 hours grumpy. Which is probably cosmic payback for the spotlight hogging, but doesn't play well alongside the other bad behavior I've had as a player so far. I feel like I've broken the don't be a douche aspect of the social contract from a previous email you fielded. It's not like I don't know I'm doing it, and I've apologized and tried to make up for it, but it's hard changing roles/gears. Any advice for a recovering GM trying to play nice? Dave from New York. P.S. Drink! Oh man, now I remember why we don't do that.
Because it's really hard.
Just long.
Honestly, I have to give this guy so much credit for, like, horror storying himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like self-reflection.
Bravo.
Yeah.
There's some great
Yeah.
like
Because, like, you're right. I bet you did probably irritate the people at your table, but the fact that you already know that
Yes.
gets you so much mileage, or at least credit in my book,
Well,
because...
Apologized.
Uh-huh.
I actually said apologize. That was the first step right there.
Yes.
Although now you've shown weakness.
And now they eat you.
yeah.
unless you eat them first.
Right.
Right.
I always advocate for eating them first.
I mean, it's polite to go
You know,
first.
one thing that you get used to as being a GM is failing. You get used to losing. And I think that that is something that transfers over to a PC situation well, is being okay with failing a dice roll. Like, when you're like, oh, well, I failed a con roll. Well, your guys get beat up all the time when you're a GM.
Yeah.
So it's like, cool, you can almost, like, for me, sometimes when I play, it's almost like a disempowerment fantasy, where it's like, I'm bad at these things, and let's see the drama that comes out of being bad at things.
Yeah.
Let's see, failing has its own reward in role-playing.
Yeah.
Use
And
it
so-
to build your character.
Right. And so, as a GM who's trying to play nice as a player, use that. Use that ability to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your advantage.
Failure.
Yeah.
Embrace failure.
I think that it can be a hard step down though, because like as a GM, when you're running and your characters fail, there's no real like loss there for you. You make them to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're on the other side of it, you're a player. There's that emotional investment where you expect or want to win.
Yeah.
Or not win, but like to succeed.
See,
Like
you,
we were
you
talking
want
about
the,
earlier,
the
the
feeling
pillars.
of being good.
Yes.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
feeling of being good
Yes.
at something.
And honestly, a great GM, in the words of Vince Baker, is a fan of the players.
Right.
Right.
You are the player's greatest cheerleader. So when your bad guys fail, you are cheering for
Yes.
the party,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. It's
Yeah.
a fucking awesome feeling. And I'll also say, like, I think I'm maybe a better GM than I am a player, and I think sometimes that's just the case. You just, some people are going to gravitate towards the one thing or the other.
Yeah.
I think I make really like static two-dimensional choices as a player, but as a GM, like taking in what everybody else, like what everyone wants to have happen at the table is exciting to me, and seeing how all those things can be woven together I find it a lot more engaging. And it's probably why I've 90% of my experience in the last 25 years has been GMing.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you're a great example of, and I would disagree that you're not a great player. I love playing
Well, that's nice.
in your games, but also with you as a player. But you have a great ability to translate your being a fan and cheering them on as a GM to being a player, where you are spotlight adjacent, where you are giving someone else the spotlight and helping to throw more focus on their character.
Spotlight adjacent is a great term. We need
you.
to you need to write that down and remember it.
Someone in the chat room said that, so the spotlight adjacent thing. But you bringing that up as like yourself as a good example, like with Interpol X recently, you've been doing a great job of that with like Mike's character and like throwing like the spotlight to him when he needs that for his great demon transformation, and things like that. So you can take that ability that you have as a GM that you're cheering on the players, but just do that as a player next to them instead of being like, this is happening for you, I'm laying this out for you. Be like, hey, is this happening for you?
Sure, and that's the bard's job too.
Yeah.
It's like buffing other players and like singing their song.
Right.
Like you,
Like
you
a
can,
laser-plated hero.
Yeah, you can embrace
Cast
that.
in lead.
No, a big white castanet. That's how it goes.
That's
I don't
right,
know
you're
what
right.
you're saying.
But yeah, definitely integrate that failure. I think sometimes failing is way more interesting than the opposite.
Almost every time.
Right.
We make a lot of fun of Stork, obviously, because he rolls horribly.
Yeah.
I
But
don't even
to-
know how he does.
I know,
It's
but to his
objectively true.
credit, when he fails, he
makes it
accepts it,
amazing.
and then he fucking rolls with it, and you're like,
Yeah.
holy shit, and it makes it more interesting sometimes, because he just, like, my first experience playing with him was Moda Sin, and he would just roll shit in, I'm just like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
And you end up like glad. You're like, oh crap, I can't believe it. And then it just ends up so interesting. You're like, all right, this is
Yeah.
awesome. This is better than I think it could have been if he like nailed that
Yeah,
roll.
he was
Right.
rolling shit horribly, and there were werewolves, and he was in a bathroom, and he's like, I'm just gonna roll with this, and he was like, almost dead.
Bathrobe.
And it was just, and he kept failing, but it was so fucking entertaining and wonderful.
Gangrel bathrobe fight. That was amazing.
It was
King
so
Girl Bathrobe
good.
Fight is the name of my next band.
Weirdly, it's already the name of my current band.
That's interesting, yeah.
A weird
Oh, that's
coincidence.
awesome.
All right,
Oh,
you
man,
guys
you
have
need
to
a
run
bar
to
player?
the office to patent and trademark
Yeah.
that.
I think one of the other skills you develop as a GM is world building,
Yeah.
right? Especially in PBTA games.
Yeah.
And so when you do all that world building for your characters, you can use those skills to world build your character. Do all those things of like, why does your character like to do stuff? Why you don't even not even just like why is your character a bard, but why does your character or what were the situations which your character arose? Like were their parents together? Like did this character get beat by their father? Like what sort of trauma did they have that shaped them? And do that world building just kind of thing. Because what I like is to do the world building that then affects everybody. But
And for fun and flavor, I'll just say real quick: give your characters different trauma from what you personally.
oh yeah,
experienced.
don't do that.
Sorry.
Good one.
Yeah. I mean, do that. Don't give them your trauma.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things from my Traveler campaign was I created like these 5 different cultures that I really tried to like make sense for a certain idea. And so I and went so far as like invented like part of their language and what do they eat, like what are the values of these different cultures. And so when the characters come onto the culture, it feels real and it feels interesting. And the same thing with your character, like put that in, like give them that motivation that you're used to already doing. You already have all their skills as a GM. And you can have the more interesting character or the one that other characters tend to latch onto because you have motivation to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Cloak72 in the chat room who came up with Spotlight Adjacent,
Oh,
by the
okay.
way. I want to give credit where credit is due for that awesome term.
Spotlight adjacent.
Spotlight Adjacent.
Can I
is
just
awesome.
a quick aside? In 3rd grade or whenever it was, I learned the word adjacent. I like sat straight up in my chair. I was like, "Excuse me, that word again, please." And it's like that word has been one of my favorite words my whole life, mainly because it just sounds like my name, and I'm that full of myself.
It's great that you're that self-aware.
Yeah.
That was
Like-
the first time you said, "Do you have a newsletter? I would like to
Yeah,
subscribe."
yeah. Like, may I sign up for this word's
Yeah.
newsletter?
I am. This is relevant to my
Yeah.
interests.
I would like people to
I would
just
like
say
to
this
subscribe to your
word
newsletter.
over
All
and
the
over.
time.
Yeah.
I do think one more thing in this email. I like that that Dave is being self-reflective enough that he's like, hey, I feel like I'm spotlight hogging, but some of that is from me trying to feel space as a GM, because that can be a habit that you get into. And I found that I've gotten into that habit because we are on the podcast. We don't want big empty spaces. So while I'm playing here at Happy Jacks, there's not a lot of dead air.
Yeah.
But I find myself going and playing other games offline where I'm like, oh God, nobody's talking. And I start talking, and then I'm like, oh, we don't have to be talking.
Right.
That's okay.
Also, one way, like a quick thing you can do to leverage accidental spotlight hogging while you're trying to wean yourself off of it is when you find yourself talking, try to turn your talking into in character asking questions of other characters.
There you go.
Right, like having your character, this bard, like, well, I want to be able to sing your song when you die. Like tell me about yourself, and like drawing out the other characters.
Oh my God.
Is a way that you can. I mean, maybe don't phrase it like that.
No,
but,
you should.
No, you should.
I want to make a bard that does that. That all they want to do. When you die,
I
want
wanna
to
sing your song.
I want to get famous off of your story. So tell me
Yeah,
your
yeah.
story, because you're going to die soon.
I wrote up a bard who
I want to be that character.
who was. I wrote
Bards
up a
are
bard
the shit.
who was
Oh yeah, bards are
specializing in
absolutely.
Sorry, Jason, what were you
Is there a
saying?
game with all bards?
Yes.
Have we done that?
just
Damn it.
no,
Yeah. Dave and Stork did it. What were you saying this?
I had written up a bard that had specialized in necromantic magic, and had this like Tuvian throat singing as it, like these dirges of.
Man, I want to make a wizard who thinks he's a bard.
Oh yeah.
That'd be the best.
If Jason plays it, it's going to nail all its bard rolls and just be like
So,
an amazing opera singer randomly.
yeah.
No skill with a negative
No,
one.
no,
in
you'll
it.
have skill. I'll have skill in singing, just no actual songs that do things. Just magic tends to happen when I sing.
Yes. Oh
God.
man.
Yeah, no, Bard class for the win.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I don't remember, they had it like a super catchy. Dave and Stork did at the last, or a con ago or 2 cons ago, where it was an all bard game. And I'm trying to remember what it was. It's like Bard,
man, if it's not-
Bard
if it-
Apocalypse or something.
Oh man, it wasn't Josie and the Pussycats.
No, it was not that. I would remember that.
That would
Yeah.
have
I
been
don't remember
awesome.
what it was, but they're gonna do a one shot of it, so maybe
I'm still dying to run an all.
I want to come.
Oh,
I want to
Imbardable.
go to there. I want to play a bard.
Yeah,
again.
Mission Imbardable was the name.
Mission
of it.
Imbardable.
Amazing.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, the puns.
Yeah,
So good.
All right. Thank you so much for writing in, Dave from New
Awesome.
York. Next email, Jason.
Okay. Why do so many players play evil PCs? From David in Tampa.
Oh, man.
All right. Dear Almighty Stu and the Mirthful Jack's crew,
No funny voice?
are you saying my voice
Almighty
isn't funny?
Kitty and the Happy Jacks crew.
Dear Almighty.
I'm surprised you didn't just
Tammy.
cross it out on
I
the
know.
paper you
if
gave
I
us.
paid that much attention, if I'd done the homework and done the reading ahead
It's
of time,
been so long since you've been Adrian.
I know. I'm losing my micromanaging skills.
I doubt that.
False. 100% false.
Survey says.
Wow, that's old.
That's me. I am very old.
Me too.
I just finished listening to you read, discuss, run off on tangents, sum up, engage in a couple more tangents, then finally end your conversation about my letter on season 21, episode 6, concerning social contracts.
You have listened to the show.
Yeah, I was here answering this first email, which is why I wanted to dibs this one.
Was I there?
Yeah, you were
Okay.
there for this too, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Oh, good.
And Mac was there too, actually.
Yeah.
And I was.
Creepy lurking inside of all the mirrors in the room.
That's amazing. You should do that all the time.
Who says I don't?
Well,
By the way, Tabby and I have met for the first time this evening,
Yeah.
so he's getting the full force of what
Oh,
being
yeah, no,
said.
we
Deal
are-
with Mac.
We are totally now best friends. It's totally cool.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, we did.
should I now be in the middle of this, or what's gonna?
no,
Yeah,
You
get out of the
like
way.
Oh boy. Okay. So anyway, thank you so much for the kind words. I would like to report that the social contract I wrote and read to the players failed miserably. I read.
Oh, I
so much-
remember this one now.
Yeah. It was. I have so much empathy for you, kind GM, David, sir.
Oh man, Florida man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Okay. Well, anyway, let me get all the way through this. We're all going to have a lot to say, I think. So, all right. In fact, the game was canceled after one session. I had 8 players all set to go at the store. I quickly reiterated some of the points about the social contract, most notably the sections about language, behavior, and that I was running a good campaign, like a good aligned,
Right.
Like good guys.
Not this needs to be good, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You will like my goddamn story.
And you'll tell everybody how good it is.
The importance of this will be made apparent quickly. I had a mix of 4 experienced players and 4 people who had never played before. I asked the veteran players to help the noobs. Everyone agreed, and I started the adventure, which was a sandbox investigation style game. There were 3 factions asking the PCs for help, all of whom were intended to be sources of further adventures, so were intended to be allies of the party. Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
The game quickly ground to a painful stop. One veteran player was a kinder, and therefore useless to moving any plot forward save for his own fascinations. The other 3 veteran players sat with their arms folded, looking at the inexperienced players, and the inexperienced players were just confused. I hate, all caps, to put players up on rails, but after a couple hours, I finally asked everyone if they would like to investigate the area to see if they could find any more information. Finally, the players flew into action. One, a veteran, walked up on a stranger in a bar who had been following them and threatened to set her afire. There.
What?
At the bar. In public.
What?
Unknown to him, she was an 8th level rogue, second in charge of the Thieves Guild, one of the 3 proposed allied organizations, and could slaughter him and the rest of the first level PCs without much effort. I decided not to TPK just yet. You are kind and benevolent.
Yeah.
They did not deserve your kindness, as you all will hear in a moment.
Benevolent or benevolent?
Yes.
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 Is there a difference?
Yes. Yes. And
The first major move by the PCs was an evil act threatening torture. It got worse. The town guard was also following them to keep track of their actions. The guard did this after giving them the mission and asking them to be discreet. This was also an organization that was intended to be an ally. When the group made a spectacle of themselves with a party member climbing a 3-story building in daylight to sneak up on someone, the captain of the guard went to them to ask why all the shenanigans. That was when our most senior player, a friend of mine for 40 years, who was playing a lawful good cleric of Shalia, told the captain of the guard that he prayed to his deity that the captain be stricken with a disease about his genitals and anus.
Wow.
ow.
I don't know how
Wow.
I don't know how good deities do it in your neighborhood, but that ain't it.
You
where
get
I'm from.
you get your cleric card revoked.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah, no, there's no good way to do that.
An evil act, violating his PC's tenets of behavior and violating his deity.
Wait, violating his deity is probably not the best way to say that.
Well, unless
He
the,
may as well have been doing it.
yes, unless the deity's into it.
Consent.
Consent is sexy, guys.
Consent is sexy.
Super. I stopped the game, looked at him in disbelief. I have this moment in my mind, like I can see it so clearly. Stopped the game, looked at him in disbelief, and asked why he would ever do that. He just shrugged.
This is when you need a 400 dice bag
Yeah.
to be able to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Easy Roller, please send that.
So this poor man.
Okay, but the pain continued. No one had fun, especially me. Yeah, how would you? Oh my god.
Yeah.
I was a mess after the game. The next day, I discussed the events in the bar with the offending player. We ultimately decided that he wasn't a good fit for the game because he saw the threat as a good act, capital G, like good aligned, as a good character, a means justifying the ends kind of thing. Nope. That is expressly evil. That's like the definition of evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, I want information out of you. I'm going to set you on fire, but in a good way.
Right.
Yeah, I like that the whole D&D alignment spectrum does not allow for much gray area.
Right.
No.
Yeah, if you're
Right.
going to use alignments in your game, you kind of got to stick with it.
Then, yeah.
Let's see. This is just so exhausting. It means justifying the end kind of thing. My friend of 40 years hasn't contacted me since that night, so I'm guessing he feels that this was his way of saying that we shouldn't be friends anymore. And that saddens me, like genuinely. I'm not even being sarcastic right now. Either way, 2 of the new players quit almost immediately. I
Right.
lost 4 of the 8 players, and I wasn't interested in running for 2 of the 4 players who were left. So I folded the game. That's my GM horror story and follow-up to the social contracts. My question is, why do so many players insist on playing evil PCs? Why do they feel it's fine for their PCs to act in ways that any reasonable, real person would think was horrible, if not downright criminal? Again, thanks for all you do. David from Tampa. P.S. You know.
I'm out of beer.
There is a
Wow.
trickle. You get it out.
Pretend for the camera.
All right, there we go.
Wow.
Right.
Sorry about your friendship ending.
So
I have so much empathy for this
Well,
moment.
yeah.
I have many feels about why players insist on playing evil PCs.
Can we before we jump into like the actual question they asked, like talking a little bit about the social contracts?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a good place to start, and then we can get to their actual question kind of at the end. Having been a teacher for many years, when you come into a classroom with like a set of rules, it's not going to work. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly. I haven't listened to the thing. But generally, what I do in my classroom is we come up with the rules together with a very heavy-handed guidance from me.
So it's like, rule number 1, light things on fire. Rule number 2,
No.
booze
Alright.
for everyone.
So just
Rule number 3, Coke is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah. No,
Sure.
the context for what we were talking about in the email that got in was like, David wanted to write up a contract to have, because he's basically playing with a bunch of strangers.
Yeah.
And to say like, I'm gonna run this game. I'm not interested in having like rape and incest, and I want the characters to be good, and like talking about the things that he was comfortable having in his game.
Right.
Right. And it was a thing that he put out there, and everybody read it and went, okay, I'm fine with abiding by this to play this game together.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the concept that he wanted to just be able to, and a lot of people do this sort of thing, at least verbally, if not.
Right.
Like I've certainly said, hey guys, this is a game where we're not about murdering people. This is it's more focused on this thing, or like it's explicitly described in masks.
Masks, yeah, yeah,
it's not a
absolutely.
game where people, like, your characters aren't gonna die. It's not the point of the story.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're gonna build stress and tension in other ways.
Yeah.
And
I'd just be interested more, like, rather than coming and handing people something, like having a conversation about
Sure.
that, even if it's with strange, like that can be an interesting way to weed out people who are, because if you're like, oh, this is what I want, someone can read that and read it and interpret it in their own way.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have that conversation, you can kind of set those norms together.
Yeah.
If you write them down as you go, like there's that kind of communal buy-in then, and that you also clarify that everyone has the same understanding of what everyone's writing down. You probably will end up with something, because you're the GM and you can very much guide that conversation with that's going to be similar to what you're going to hand them anyway.
Yeah.
But I have found that mostly when you hand someone a list of things not to do, that's going to be the first thing they start thinking about doing. But not even like meaning to, but they're like, oh, I can't touch the cake in the middle of the table.
Yeah. But
I have
I
no
can't-
idea what you're talking about.
I don't know why I
But
like
here's
it.
the thing. Here's the thing.
No idea.
At least in the context of this, what he's written here, it doesn't seem like people rebelled. It seemed like they thought what they were doing was good.
Right, because I think they didn't have the same understanding
Right.
that he thought they would have with that document.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I think that's something, like, we've had that happen in our games. And, like, it seems to be sort of the default. Like, the murder hobo trope is real and live. And, people seem to think, like, the minute they become these characters in games that they can kind of do terrible things. And, I mean, I guess it works in comic books. Like, Batman goes around and beats the shit out of people to get information, but he's still a good guy?
But I mean, that's where you come into like a couple concepts. Like for a lot of people, D&D is a empowerment fantasy.
Yeah.
Where they get to do all the things they never get to do. Well, it turns out in polite society, we can't do terrible, terrible things.
Right.
So when it's like you can do anything and there's no literal repercussions upon you as a person, especially, well, I shouldn't say especially. Oftentimes it's new players who do that just because they've never done it before. Or you get to know people when you roleplay with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, maybe like your friend, really, really like the idea of if I didn't have repercussions, I would do terrible things.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Which
And
is
the-
scary, but
Right.
possible.
Then the other thing is sociopaths are people who have difficulty creating emotional like connections with people,
Right.
or caring about other people's emotions. So in a game, and D&D is a tough one, especially in your first game, especially when you have people just off, at the very first game doing crazy shit. But like when players don't feel like they emotionally connect with NPCs, like they don't care, like that's one of the reasons why in PBTA, give everybody a name.
Yeah.
Make everybody feel human.
Yeah.
And so when people feel human, then you can have emotional connections with them and not be a sociopath.
Yeah.
And if you're a sociopath with a sword who has an empowerment fantasy, that's when things go off the rails.
Yeah.
And so like with this person, it sounds like, oh, I thought that was good because, well, he wanted to do something to that guard. And so this is the thing that he came up with that was good in order to get the guard to do what they wanted, because it's that kind of empowerment fantasy and not caring about the captain of the guard.
Yes.
A couple other things I would say too that actually we were talking about earlier. One, I would have only run this for like the 4 new people. 4 or 5 people is
Eight is a lot.
it's too many.
Especially when half of them are new.
Yeah, I'll just say, I will arbitrarily say 8 is far too many, and I would never run a game for 7 or 8 people.
Right.
6 is a hard maybe, and
I like
Thou
5 to
shalt
6.
not have more than 5 or 6
Yeah,
players.
I like
7
4.
is outright.
I think 4 is perfect.
I like 4 too.
I think 5 is tolerable. 6 I can maybe live with if I really like everybody at the table.
Yeah.
I like 5 is the sweet spot for me,
Yeah.
because if you're missing somebody, you can still play.
That's true.
If you're missing 2 people, you can eke something out.
But my follow up to this is have your, let's say 5, like when you go to the game store and you say, I'm looking for 5 players, that's it. When you have your people, then I'm just assuming here that you probably didn't all make characters together at the table. Like your first session should have been making characters together.
We need a T-shirt for you that says that.
Yes.
Yes.
Make your characters together. Because a lot of this conversation about your social contract probably would have come up in the, like, okay, well, my character is from this town where he murdered everybody he knew and left that town to live a life somewhere else. And you're like, so that doesn't actually fit the theme of the game we're rolling, and I'd like you to kind of tweak that a little bit. That's a conversation you can have on the fly,
right,
instead of like suddenly somebody rolling up like, so here's my serial killing mass murderer. Is that cool with everybody?
Yeah.
The communication is super important, and this is coming from somebody who, if I'm playing a video game and I am left to my own devices, I play the most garbage character possible.
Yeah,
I have been playing Fallout 3. I'm a cannibal. I'm in league with the slavers.
Right.
I've been stealing people's shit and selling it back to them. I have a thing where if I kill innocent people and bring back ears, I can get bottle caps for it. I play the most miserable piece of shit ever.
Right.
But when I'm playing something where I am with other people, I have conversations with them and really set what the rules are. There are some games that are meant for backstabbing and doing horrible things. Vampire the Masquerade is a great example of a game where I was trying to explain to somebody earlier today actually about the clans in Vampire, and they're like, these are all terrible. I'm like, yes. It's a game where you're terrible.
Monsters.
Yeah.
Everyone is terrible.
That's built into the premise of the game,
right,
and it's expected.
Exactly.
It's in the implied social contract
but it
that
goes
you have.
back to what we talked about earlier, which is setting the expectations.
Yeah.
And the expectations and the communication are key in this to do that. And sometimes, especially like with a game that's like a pickup kind of game, sometimes people just gotta go.
Yeah.
Or make it really difficult for them to do garbage things that ruin it for everyone. And that sucks because you don't want to railroad people, but sometimes you have to a little bit.
Yeah. What's interesting to me reading this email is it seems that all the shit came from the veteran players.
Yeah.
Right.
If you have contact information, I'd maybe reach out to those 4 new players and offer to run something for them.
Yeah. I mean, he says that he wasn't interested in 2 of the
Well, I think
new
those were
players.
2
No.
veterans.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't interested in running for 2 of the 4 players who were left.
Yeah, 2 of the newbies ditched,
Yeah.
and then of the 4 people left, it was 2 and 2.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I haven't had to do a lot of gaming with strangers. There have been a couple of instances at cons and stuff like that where it seems like like the veteran players, like they have this go-to bag of tricks, which is like with the same things you'll see. You know, it's like, oh, I'm gonna torture that guy until he tells me what I'm gonna do. Well, you're a paladin. I don't care. It's like this weird. The weird thing I found actually with new players, they're less likely to pull shit like that. Maybe it's because they're nervous or they don't want to do anything wrong and they're not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of
I don't know. I mean, we've said many times here that like the people you're playing with really makes the games.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you just got a bunch of garbage humans, and that kind of sucks.
It sounds like two garbage humans,
it's
and they
hard.
ruined it for everyone.
It's hard because I've run a lot of games and played in a lot of games with a group that I've been with for a long time.
Yeah.
And even the group I had before that 20 years ago, I just hung out with all of them last weekend.
Yeah.
And we bullshitted for 5 hours at a pub drinking beer about all of our games. And so it's like, I want to like magic you better players.
Right.
Because it's like,
But
it's frustrating.
He is in Tampa.
You are in Florida.
Yeah.
So maybe run a game for alligators.
There you go. They might be better humans than your humans.
Maybe better humans than your humans.
David, thank you for running this game
Yeah.
for strangers. The fact that this is why new DMs or just DMs in general are afraid to go out and run a new game somewhere.
Right.
When I first moved to California, I hesitated a long time, but like Shadowrun and RPG is in my blood. Finally went to a game store, put something up on the corkboard, and just crossed my fingers and like wound up with a decent bunch of people at that point, and have met lots of people since then. But like, it's such a crapshoot of who you're gonna wind up with.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely a don't take it personally. Like you tried to do everything right. Yes. You tried to lay down like, hey, we're all going to be on the same page with this, and they just like, they read it, they agreed to it, and then they fucked off.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the friend of yours for 40 years. That guy knows better. I mean, that guy knows better.
He knew what you wanted out of this social contract. Like,
and he was
knew
like,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the chat room, Ed from Minnesota says he's actually in Tampa. He's not in Minnesota, even though his name says from Minnesota. And he says if you get in touch, maybe you can join their game.
Hey, yeah.
So go on Discord, go on the Happy Jacks forum, and maybe you can find good players who live near you who subscribe to the Happy Jacks way.
Who won't be douchebags.
Yeah,
well, they will be, but they'll be the best kind of douchebags.
The highest caliber douchebags.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I mean, that sucks. I'm
I
sorry
mean,
that game, but don't let it keep you from GMing.
Yeah,
because
please. We like great GMs. Like it sounds like this story was really involved and exciting, and it wasn't on the rails. Like a good sandbox D&D is very difficult to pull off. And I want to play. I want to find out what's going on in this town. Like this sounds cool, but like I'm just so bummed that this happened because I've been there. I've run this kind of game, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah. Take it, let it make you stronger.
Yep.
All right, next email. Mac, it's your turn. I love like Stu asks for volunteers. I'm like, you read.
Well, no, I'm excited about this
What?
because it asks for a
micromanage.
What? It asks for a Dear Penthouse forum voice, which I'm going to take as being breathy and sexy sounding. But I'm going to start out normal with Dear Happy Jacks. I never thought this would happen to me from Askew Dragon.
Nice.
Pre-script. Have a drink.
Woohoo!
Don't mind if I do.
He's gonna get every job.
Come on, you wee bastard.
Prescript. Please read this with your best Dear Penthouse forum voice. Dear Happy Jacks. I never thought it would happen to me. I had my own no mere hedge mage. I've been running D&D 5e in Hare's Crossing, a homebrewed setting that has been slowly building with input from the players. Last session, the group went on a dungeon crawl through a necromancer's abandoned hideaway in the mountains. They were given a map and a key to the front door by my NPC, Dragonborn wedding planner, who the party had convinced to come out of retirement to plan the dwarf fighter's younger sister's wedding.
That's amazing.
This is so great already. I want to go there.
To bankroll this, the Dragonborn sent the party to go loot the hideaway that he had won in a card game years ago.
Legit.
The dungeon had a couple of rooms to search through, a few puzzles, a handful of skeletons that were left behind, and a necrotic guardian.
Hot.
Go on.
The guardian was a creature that I had custom built using the advice on creature creation from the angry GM on his blog. I had built a boss battle that would have been a challenge for my group of first level characters. Well, should have been.
This is great.
I had given the Guardian special rules for ghost armor and extra necrotic damage for its sword that was manifested by statues in the corners of the room it was in. Destroying the statues would dispel the effects.
Awesome.
I had given it necrotic energy bolt attack that was echoed by one of the lesser skeletons earlier in the dungeon. It had been the same undead resilience that zombies have in 5e. It had 52 hit points.
This is great. Foreshadowing, like prep, like this is great.
I decided to
Oh
also give
my.
it the same vulnerability to bludgeoning damage as the other skeletons.
Hot.
I also gave it all the undead vulnerability against radiant damage, because narratively and thematically, it made sense to me and it sounded like a decent balance. That's where I went wrong.
What's really funny is like I feel like this is like true to Max, like pillow talk.
52
I gave it all the
points.
undead invulnerability
But all the vulnerability
Yes.
to
against radiant damage. Oh yes.
You're like,
See, while I knew that the cleric had spells that did radiant damage, I didn't realize how often she could cast them or how much damage they could do.
Oh my.
ruh-roh.
The group had made their way through the dungeon, and as they pushed open the heavy brass doors emblazoned with the flaming skull emblem of Ouija's, the 4 statues, necrotic busts with sickly purple flames in their eye sockets and mouths, in the corners of the chamber spoke as the guardian shuddered to quote-unquote life. With raspy voices,
Oh,
they-
I get it, because it's not really alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
With raspy voices, they spoke in unison. Interlopers, leave now or suffer the consequences.
Also Max pillow talk.
You're not wrong.
Interlopers.
Go on.
Only if Kimmy keeps up her end of the social contract.
Right. I promise.
Go on.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Right.
There had better be a goddamn newsletter.
This is relevant to my interests. I would like to subscribe to your newsletter.
At which point the cleric lobbed a guiding bolt at it in a surprise attack, dealing 11 radiant damage. And did you know that guiding bolt did radiant damage? I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, right. That's awkward.
Oh.
Combat began. The dwarf ran up and missed the attack with 2 hand axes. The halfling bard inspired the cleric with a song and scampered into the room to get the position for a flanking maneuver. The guardian, with armor now manifesting, swung at the dwarf and missed. Then the cleric went. She lobbed another guiding bolt, using both the bardic inspiration and the roll with advantage inspiration. It hit. She rolled 17 damage.
Oh my.
As I added up the damage, all of which was doubled by the vulnerability to radiant damage type, the horror dawned on me. Well then, I said, putting down my pencil and turning to the cleric, how do you kill it? The table erupted into cheers and laughter as the guardian erupted into divine fire and burned away.
That's awesome.
Nice.
After a few moments bemoaning the unexpected and expedited turn of events, I described the rooms beyond which held the treasure that they had been looking for, as well as the sumptuously appointed bedroom that had belonged to the
Yes.
necromancer.
All right. Here we go.
This is relevant to my interests.
I'll be in my bunk.
They pretty much took everything not nailed down, and a few things that had been.
Oh my.
All right. We're good.
Oh my God, I'm
All right.
dying.
Yes, you are.
All right.
Which did include a black iron rod that didn't match the decor.
Just mute him. Just mute him.
And
Which didn't match. Are you muted now?
yeah.
All right. Let me start again from that sentence because it was beautiful. Which did include a black iron rod that didn't match the decor of the necromancer's style at all and had been hidden behind a secret door. So that plot hook is in place now, and I have a plan to have fun teasing that out over the next several game sessions. God damn it.
Mute
you guys.
again.
All in all, it was a great time having fun with friends, and having listened to you folks for years now, I both stepped up in the GM screen as well as having a far better idea of how to craft a game worth playing. Thank you, you magnificent 20-sided bags of feminine hygiene products from the very bottom of my dice bag.
Aww.
Sean B, a.k.a. Askew Dragon on the forums. P.S. Obligatory P.S. PPS. I have to sing the praises of the 5-room dungeon style of design. I've used it for every session so far with this group, and it has proven to be utterly invaluable for designing satisfying scenarios that nestle nicely into an appropriate 4-hour runtime.
4 hours seems like enough. Like, I don't know if I could survive more than that.
P.S. The space left intentionally blank.
Oh my god!
Incredible.
Oh man!
Bravo.
That is the best letter yet. I'm sorry, everybody else, but that was
Is
amazing.
anyone else sweaty?
I am from trying to retain laughter. Oh my god!
I have to say,
man.
I'm glad everybody had a good time. I guarantee no one would have minded if you just like doubled the HP on the fly. Like, they probably didn't know how many HP this thing had. Like,
Yeah.
you're going nuts. Everyone's having fun. Let everyone get some more attacks in.
Yeah.
You know, like.
It also sounds like
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a great time,
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
a meeting went.
Yeah, you didn't need to do anything different. Yeah, they just went, goodbye, Guardian. And they had a blast. But if you felt like it,
Yeah.
I don't think
Nobody
would have held it against you if you were like, yeah, let's give it some more hit points. Let's keep going.
There are people who would hold it against you, but not good players.
Yeah,
They don't have to know.
Right, yeah.
Right.
But also sometimes letting them have that victory is awfully fun. I'm not gonna lie, during the last session of Razor Ridge, I threw an enemy at the bad guys. It rolled like shit. It went last in the initiative, and someone decided to literally rip it open from its asshole, which I'm like, all right, let's let this happen.
There's an
I
opening
don't care.
there.
And you know what? They felt great about it ripping a spider from its asshole.
Yes.
So, hey, who am I to stop werewolves having a good time?
And honestly,
Oh, so the
spiders.
Nazi changing breed? Was that it?
Oh, God.
No, they were
it's
fighting a Texas tarantula.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think too, like you were saying, you can have like amazing moments, like the No Mere Hedge Mage moments.
It's great.
Like that was from an old 5 was it 5e or 4e? I don't know. One of the D&D campaigns we did, and Stu made this amazing mage, and just like the sequence of events that happened, he got like taken out in like two shots, and that's a moment we're still talking about years later because it was so awesome because of that.
It feels amazing.
Yeah.
I remember, I think you were here. It was the night that we only had a few of us for Mode of Sin. I don't actually, were you here?
I don't know.
And we were going through the Opera House, and we were chasing some vampires. Maybe not. But, like, I rolled really high, and I one-shotted a vampire through a clothing rack in wolf form, and was just like, done.
Nice.
And I was just like, I feel amazing.
It's almost as if the feeling of being good at something.
Yeah.
is
Bring it
really,
back around, Taffy.
really
Bring it back
addictive.
around.
Is that a reference to something?
No.
Nothing.
I don't
No.
get it.
You know, also, arguing against my own little, like, oh yeah, double the HP. Like, how often does the cleric get to feel like this much of a fucking badass?
Right? You're playing the healer. You
Yeah.
just went,
I mean, D&D clerics are pretty chunky, but like that's 22 on the first hit, 34 on the second hit. Like, yeah, that's like rogue daily life. You know, like you get to feel like that when you're fighting the necrotic undead. You know, that's cool.
And there's one time in a Exalted game I was playing in once where we had a character who was playing, I forget which, the Eclipse, who are like, they're good at like negotiating with people and saline and bureaucracy. And everybody else was like, I'm a god at melee combat, or nobody can see me, and this other bullshit.
Oh, you
So-
said sailing. I thought you said sailing. I'm like, that's a weird talent.
Yeah, I had to work
Saline.
that out too. Yeah.
Sailing. So this
Eye
person
drops.
who's playing the this Eclipse character finally has this negotiation moment with the big bad, and the one magic item that she had was this poison quill, right? That had like this super
Pen
crazy.
is mightier than
I
the
know,
sword.
exactly. So there's the big bad going blah 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 blah. You are going to do these things, and he's like, oh yes, let's sign a contract. They also have the ability to, if like you agree to something and shake hands on it, you magically have to fulfill your part of the bargain.
Cool.
It's like, we're gonna do that. So getting the paper and the quill out, and then like he grabs for it and she stabs him with the quill.
That's so
And then the GM's like,
Good. Oh shit.
well, he came up with some bullshit reason
come
why it
on.
didn't work. And it's like, fuck this game.
That's lame.
Right? It was totally lame.
Yeah.
And so, like, when it comes to parts of like PC brilliance, whether it be I just rolled really high or I had a cool plan, I am totally okay with like, well, scratch one, Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the GM, you can make more.
Yeah.
Like, there's always more.
You are a literal monster horror factory.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Are
that sounds great.
yes, absolutely. So are we spent? Are we done?
I'm super spent after
I
that.
am.
Excellent.
I need a
Well, I have a
cigarette.
refractory period, but it's going to take a little while.
All right, so we're gonna call it. Let's see if I can do the thing.
We're listeners of Happy Jack's
I think that's how I turn it down. I don't know if that's how I turn it on.
Is
Just
your
the
mic,
music.
still on?
Yeah, my mic's still on.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we're
I can
supposed to
turn
do
it down
here?
that way. Now I know how to turn it down.
All right.
All right, thank you for joining us for season 21, episode 10. My name is Kimmy,
This is Tappy.
I'm Jason.
Mech!
and we'd like to thank our friends over at EasyRollerDice.com. Go check out their awesome Kickstarter for their new dice bag at EasyRollerDice.com/bag. And I think that's it. We have some stuff coming up. Check out happyjacks.org/schedule for games coming up. Don't forget, we have a brand new game and show starting tomorrow at 12:30. That is The Darknet, which is a GURPS online game with our good friends Bill and Elsbeth and Tyler, who are streaming in from afar.
That's so cool.
Any game with Bill is a good game.
Yes, but we're starting at 12:30 tomorrow. Usually we'll be at 12, but tomorrow's our first time with all the video feeds from all over the planet, so we're starting a little late just to make sure it all works. So check it in, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you guys very much. Bye.
Bye.
I can't see where the thing is.
Should we have done all that before we did this song?